Welcome back to the session. So, in the previous session we had a discussion on about the managerial role. So, where did we understood that managerial role is nothing but the behavior of the manager in executing various functions of management. And then we also had a insight on Henry Mintzberg 10 managerial roles, which was classified in 3 broader categories of interpersonal role, wherein in interpersonal role we have seen the role of manager is to have a figurehead, because he is representing the organization in various social and official meetings and all that, and he should act as a leader in leading the whole team, and then he acts as a liaison between the various stakeholders in the organization. That is with respect to the interpersonal role. The second role of the manager is informational role, wherein he has to monitor the employees in the organization in attaining the organizational goals. He should disseminate the informations which are required for the employees or the subordinates to execute their work or the operations, and then as a manager he should be a spokesperson. He should represent the excel stakeholders whenever there is in times of crisis or conflicts in order to resolve it. That is with respect to the informational role. Moving on to the third role of a manager is the decisional role, wherein we did understand a manager needs to have an entrepreneurial quality in order to build in an entrepreneurial quality amidst the subordinates or the employees. And not just that, and manager has to know how to tackle the conflicts or how to resolve the issues or disputes in the organization. So, his role is a disturbance handler. Not just that, a manager should know how to allocate the resources and see to that it is optimally utilized by various departments in the organization, and a manager needs to have good negotiation skill in order to strike a deal benefiting both the parties. Now, this we have seen in the previous session in detail, we have discussed on this. So, having discussed that, we also saw how to apply these 10 different managerial roles in the workplace by a manager. Here a manager ought to have a self-awareness, yes, and understanding about himself or herself, and he or she needs to update this skills required for various other roles, and not just that, should have a good relationship building skills and should be able to strategically think to make an informed decisions. So, this is what we have covered in the previous session. Today we will just try to move in depth about this. Now, moving on to the next slide, we have the 5 minds of a manager. Yeah. So, the concept of this 5 managerial mindset underscores the multifaceted nature of managerial work. Now, what are these? A manager should have a reflective mindset. It is not just a manager, let me tell you, each one of us as an individual, we should have this reflective mindset. At the end of the day, we should give some minutes or few hours at least dedicated for yourself in understanding what you have done for yourself for the whole day. This is known as self-reflection. Now, when you understand what you have done, you will be able to understand your SWOT. This is exactly what a manager needs to have. Now, in self-reflective mindset, a manager needs to cultivate a self-awareness about himself and critically think to understand the complex situations that could arise in the organization in order to take right decisions at the right time. This is why we need to have a reflective mindset as a manager. Then, the second requirement from the manager is action mindset. A manager should be action oriented. Drive the changes which is required in time by setting proper goals in the organization, by motivating the employees, because we know that change is constant, but adapting to the change is always reluctant by the people in the organization. Nobody wants change, everybody are comfortable in their comfort zone. Now, it is the responsibility and the duty of the manager to see to that to implement the changes which are required, and to see to that the subordinates adapt to those changes, motivate them, drive them to implement it, execute. So, a manager should be action oriented. Collaborative mindset. As a manager, he has to negotiate, he has to handle, understand, be reflective, collaborative, nurture the relationship within the organization, encourage the teamwork. Britishers left with unity in diversity, isn't it? They believe in divide and rule, but this divide and rule system will not help in the organization, because work has to be synchronized, collaborated, and that is the reason we should always try to foster the teamwork or group work within the organization, and have a collective intelligence, a brainstorming session to achieve the goals of the organization. Then the next one is worldly mindset. Not just enough to have a self-reflection and action orientation and a collaborative mindset, a manager should have a worldly understanding. He should be aware of what is happening around, outside the organization as within the organization. An understanding of the world will enable him to understand where his organization is positioned itself in this present scenario, and to reach out how he has to move on, in what direction he has to move on. So, develop a broad understanding of the global trends and the changes, the cultural nuances, because culture varies from countries to country, and the contextual factors to be navigated by the manager if he has to go with the global presence or global setup, because geographical boundaries have been removed today because of the advancement of the countries to such a level. Then we have something known as analytical mindset. A good manager should have a good analytical skill, analyzing the situation, diagnose a problem. When you do not diagnose a problem, it is not possible to find a solution to the problem. It is not possible to frame the strategies to the problem, and that is the reason a good manager should have a good analytical skill. Now, these are the 5 minds of a manager which he should incorporate. He should be having a reflective mindset, action mindset, collaborative mindset, worldly mindset, and analytical mindset. Yeah. Now, when a manager encompasses all these roles, actions, a manager can enhance his effectiveness and navigate the complex challenges and drive for sustainable success of the organization in this dynamic business environment. So, this is of the 5 minds of a manager. Then we have something known as managerial skills. Now, having studied about managerial role, let us just try to understand and have some insight about the managerial skills. I told you, in order to have use this managerial roles, the 10 different roles, a manager ought to have certain managerial skills. So, here there are some of the essential managerial skills to move on with. We have leadership quality. A manager should have a leadership driven quality with him. So, in leadership we need to see to that a leader should have an inspiring vision. The vision is nothing but the direction, and this vision created by the top level of the organization has to be articulated in such a way to the other levels of the organization that they understand it clearly and digest it. And hence the manager has to motivate the other subordinates in order to meet the vision. Empowerment. It is not just the manager takes care to build himself, but he should also have the quality of building his team, empowering his team. So, how does he empower his team? By giving proper training, rigorous training, and various workshops, conducting various workshops, delegating the task, fostering the autonomy, and empowering the team to take up the ownership for their work. When every employee in the organizations know what is expected, they will be accountable for their own roles. Conflict resolution. A manager or a leader should know how to handle and resolve the disputes in the organization. So, mediate the conflict, promote and encourage as much as possible a good teamwork, a good spirit in the positive vibe in the organization, which can reduce the disputes. A proper collaboration you can establish. That is with respect to the leadership. The other managerial skill is communicate. Most of the time we can see that organization collapse because there is miscommunication in the organization, communication distortion in the organization, language barriers. A proper communication needs to be built in an organization. So, clear communication, convey the ideas or the visions what has been said by the top level managers to the middle level managers properly, and from the middle level managers to the lower level managers, and from the lower level managers it has to be executed to the other subordinates in the organization who are working in different departments. Convey the ideas properly, convey the instructions properly, give a proper feedback to the employees. When there is clear communication, that can develop a good understanding and a good positive culture in the organization. Active listening. A manager is not just the one who is all the time trying to lead and motivate. He should also have the patience to listen to his subordinates. So, listening attentively to the others' opinions, others' ideas, others' thoughts, others' messages, others' words, others' perspective. Taking the feedback to foster an open communication. When you go with open communication in the organization, that enhances the morale of the employees because you are reposing the trust on them. So, active listening is very important skill of a manager. Feedback delivery. As a manager or leader, one should be able to give a constructive feedback to its employees on timely basis. A feedback given during when things are out of control, that is of no use. Praise the employees, and appreciation of your employees is very essential because that can motivate them. Recognize, acknowledge and facilitate a continuous improvement and development of your employees is also one of the skill of a manager. The third role of or the skill which a manager ought to have is the decision making. A manager has to not just lead, but a manager has to take a decision, and informed decisions has to be taken on timely basis. Now, for this a manager needs to have certain skills. Now, what skills a manager needs to have? And good analytical skill, a manager should be able to analyze the situation scenarios well, assess the risk and evaluate the problem and evaluate the solution and pick a right solution which can help them to take a right decisions. Then the second skill under decision making is problem solving. It is the role of a manager to solve the problem. Now, how to solve the problem? Identify the crisis, go to the root of the problem, identify the challenges, generate creative solutions, alternatives, pick the best alternative and implement it to solve the problems. Adaptability, adaptation, adapting to the latest technology, latest requirement which is demanded. All this has to be properly taken care of by the manager. Then the fourth managerial skill a manager needs to have is interpersonal skill. Now, when it comes to interpersonal skill, interpersonal means how a manager maintains a relationship with himself with the other stakeholders in the organization. Stakeholders could be internal as well as external. There we say a manager needs to be empathetic. Putting yourself in the shoes of others, only then you will be able to understand what temperament they are going through, what is the intensity of the problem or the situation they are going through. So be empathetic. Nobody wants sympathy these days. People wants to be, realizing how he or she is going through the organization in times of crisis. So that is what we call it as empathy. Then we have relationship building. How do you build a relationship building? These days you can see most of the organizations, they encourage their employees to go out for trips. They themselves will sponsor them to encourage, sponsor their family or sponsor the employees to have certain kind of entertainment during the weekend or on a vacation. Now why they encourage the employees to do all this? This is to build a good relationship building, so that they come out with a good spirit when they are working in the organization. The next managerial skill in interpersonal skill is influence. A manager is not just a leader, but he should be inspiring his teammates to follow him. He should be able to persuade the others to motivate him, to follow him. Yeah? So he should be an influencer. These days in social media we find several influencers. We just keep on trolling those reels. Now what are we doing there? We are just getting influenced by those influencers. Now this is what exactly even a manager has to do, because he should know that his actions are watched by the subordinates, and hence he should be inspiring them. He should be influencing them in a positive direction. Time management. Yes, this is another skill which a manager ought to have. Learn to manage your time well. If you do not know to manage yourself, how can you manage the others in the organization, isn't it? Now prioritize your tasks. In time management, a manager needs to prioritize the task. There are different tasks which has to be accomplished. Now all cannot be accomplished at one time. So this task which has to be accomplished has to be divided into many tasks, many projects, and priority has to be given accordingly. Allocate the time accordingly. Give importance to the important work. Organization. Managing time effectively, setting realistic deadlines or the targets, and having a structured approach to work will help you to organize the resources well. Delegate the work properly. When you know the work, you will be able to delegate it. You will have a balanced workload and leveraging the strengths of the team members, depending on, because not everybody will be capable in the same manner. So one would be good at something, the other would be good at something. Understanding their strengths and weaknesses, try to leverage it and delegate the work accordingly. So this is the time management skill of a manager. Moving on to the next skill we have is the strategic thinking. Strategic thinking is nothing but the long-term planning. Now the strategic plans are developed and implemented, and these plans which are developed and implemented, it should align with the organizational vision and mission statement. Risk management. A manager should know that risk is unavoidable, but how to minimize this risk? Risk cannot be mitigated, but it can be minimized. There are several risk management techniques. Update yourself in those areas and help the organizations to minimize the risk, if possible mitigate to a certain extent also. Innovation. Innovation is the mantra of today's business. Every product, we do not find monopoly much, isn't it, other than living out to defense and the Navy and the Air Force. Every other sectors have got multiple substitutes, and that is where innovation is the mantra of today's business era. Every organization has to encourage innovation. So encourage the creativity of employees, and that is where I was talking to you in the the previous session about the entrepreneur. Encourage every employee to think creatively, out of the box. Give them the required support, help them to explore new opportunities and help them to grow and develop. The next skill a manager should have is a team management. Team building. Don't go with divide and rule, always go with group group teamwork. Build a cohesive teams. encourage them to collaborate and promote a positive work culture in the organizations. An organization which has a positive work culture, you can see the attrition rate is very less because the employees are happy and satisfied. They know what they have to do in the organizations and they achieve their objectives. They also help the organizations to achieve their goals. Performance management. Now, how do we manage the performance of the employees in the organization? Have a proper performance appraisal system. Have a transparent performance appraisal system. Encourage the employees to know how they have performed. Give a constructive feedback. Set a proper goal to them. Give a constructive feedback to them and support professional development of team members. Conflict resolution. Conflicts are bound to happen in the organizations because everybody comes from diverse culture. Now, how to minimize it? It is in the hands of the leader. Address the issue on time, promote a harmonious relationship among everybody in the organization and have a constructive work culture. This is with respect to the team management. Then we have something known as the emotional intelligence skill which a manager ought to have. Emotional intelligence, how well a manager is able to manage his emotions will help him to teach and inspire others to manage their emotions as well. Now, how do you manage your emotions? You have to understand your own self. So, self-awareness we call it as. Recognize your own emotions, strengths and areas of improvement. Do not hesitate to know your weakness and to work upon your weakness. Social awareness. You need to understand the others. Be empathy towards the others. Self-regulation. Regulate your own thoughts, regulate your own ideas, regulate your own principles, your own ethics. Stay calm, because when you are calm, you can be 100 times productive. If you are stressed, whatever you know, you have a tendency to forget. So, help the employees to understand how to resonate themselves with resilience in challenging situation. This is with respect to the emotional intelligence. Then we have the next module skill which talks about the financial literacy. It is not just for a manager, but every individual for that matter should have certain amount of literacy on finance. How to earn is not just important, but how to manage the earnings is very important. Budgeting. Now, as a leader, the leader should be having some knowledge of budgeting. It is a statement of expenses and income. Now, have budgets for every department. Is it required to have budget for every department? Then how this budget has to be prepared? Have an idea about all this. And once the budget is prepared, a manager will be able to delegate the resources effectively to attain the objectives of. So, we were discussing about the financial literacy which a manager should encompass in his managerial role. Now, when you are talking about the financial literacy, we did understand about budgeting. A manager should have a thorough knowledge of how to prepare the budget and how to, this budget preparation will help a manager to allocate the resources so that, the objectives of the organizations can be achieved. Moving on with the next element of financial literacy is the financial analysis. Now, a manager should have an understanding of the financial statements. Now, how to analyze this financial statement? So, an accountant has to be appointed in every organizations and the accounts has to be properly maintained. Now, this maintenance of accounts will help a manager to have a proper analysis of the balance sheet, the assets and the liability component, the income and expenditure component. The cash flow analysis will help a manager to understand what is the cash inflows and the cash outflows and how to procure the fund and how to avoid unnecessary expenses. Now, this kind of analysis a manager should be able to excel with. Then a manager should also have a knowledge about the cost management. Now, what is cost management? Ascertaining the cost of a product or a services. Now, how to ascertain the cost? There are different techniques of cost management. So, have a proper understanding of this, and this will help a manager to avoid any kind of unnecessary expenditures, control the expenses and maximize the profit while minimizing the risk. So, having a knowledge about finance is equally important for a manager along with the other managerial skills. That is what I am trying to tell here. Then continuous learning. Now, when we say that as a teacher should have a passion towards teaching and a passion to learn. Only when we keep updating yourself, we will be able to deliver a proper content. Same goes with everybody in every profession. Keep updating oneself. As a manager, he should possess the curiosity, a thirst for knowledge should have, and seeking new opportunities to learn and staying abreast with the latest trends and techniques and adopting the best practices in the organization. Not just that, adaptability. A good manager should embrace a change, be open to new ideas and creativities, and help the others to empower and encourage them. Feedback receptivity, we call it, next one. Welcoming the feedback from the others. When somebody is giving you a critical comment, encourage it. That acceptance a manager should have. Always encourage for the critical analysis and learn from success or failures of yourself or from others, and actively seeking opportunities for growth and development is another element in continuous learning. Now, having understood that the different skills that a manager has to possess to become a good leader in an organization, here there are some of the strategies that one can use to enhance your managerial skills. Now, what are the strategies to enhance those skills, the managerial skills what we discussed in the earlier slides? Technical skills. We should know that today almost all the companies are in search for technical analyst. The top management are expected to enhance their technical skills these days. Why is that so? As long as the management don't have a fair knowledge of technology, they will not be able to relish and encourage and adapt themselves the technological culture in the organization with others. So, for that matter, everybody in the organization is expected to have technical skills these days, no matter whatever the levels you hold. So, technical skills are the specific knowledge and the expertise which are required to perform certain tasks related in the particular field or in the industry. So, technical skills could be in terms of proficiency in using relevant softwares and tools, knowledge of the industry specific regulations and the standards, understanding of the technical process and procedures within the organization. So, a manager ought to have a technical skills. Interpersonal skills. We know that having a good interpersonal skill can have a positive vibe in the organization, and that can have a positive multiplication of many things in the organization as well. And how to develop this good interpersonal skills? By having a good proper communication, the ability to convey the ideas on timely basis effectively, both verbally and non-verbally, having a good leadership capacity to influence others to achieve the common goals of the organization, being empathy to others, and being a conflict resolution. The skill to address the issues of others is one of the constructive quality of interpersonal skill of a manager. Conceptual skills. Now, what is concepts? Concepts are nothing but the knowledge that we gain through formal education. A manager ought to have this conceptual skills also, ability to think strategically, analyze a complex situation and make the informed decisions. Why these skills are required? To understand the broader organizational context, identify the opportunities and threats for the organization, and build a better strategies to combat those. Now, the conceptual skills of a manager will include strategic thinking, problem solving, the ability to solve the root cause of the problem, and take a proper constructive decisions on a timely basis. Now, how to strengthen these managerial skills? Now, to strengthen these managerial skills, one needs to have a self-assessment. A manager ought to have a self-assessment. That is what we call it as self-reflection. Reflect on your strength and areas of improvement. Seek for critical feedback from your colleagues or your mentors or your supervisors. Set proper goals. Set a clear goals. Yeah. Break down a goal into smaller goals. That is what we say. The vision, the direction for the company is set by the top level. The mission is set by the top level, and this mission is converted into objectives by the lower level in the organization, and this objective is further subdivided to departmental objectives. Now, this departmental objectives has to be further divided by the employees. An employee should set target for himself or herself on daily basis, hourly basis also it could be. How much you have to achieve, what you want to achieve in an hour. Break down the larger goals into smaller goals and manage step to task progress over time. Continuous learning, yeah. So, keep attending workshops, take up trainings, online courses related to leadership or any kind of management or pertaining to your area of work. Read books as much as possible, refer to articles, the research papers, stay informed, updated with the latest updates which is happening in the world. Update yourself with the latest trends and practices and with new perspectives. That will encourage your continuous learning. Practice active listening. Try to feel others, understand others, give an ear to others. Take the feedback from others. Use techniques such as paraphrasing, summarizing and asking clarifying questions to demonstrate an understanding and empathy among others. Seek mentorship and coaching. Have certain influences in life, have certain mentors in your life, guides in your life who can support you whenever you need them, who can give you a constructive feedback, who can critically evaluate your performance. Take on the leadership opportunities. Now, how to take on? Volunteer for leadership roles or projects within the organization. Lead by example, demonstrate initiative and take ownership for your own task. Be accountable and responsible to your job. So, these are some of the leadership opportunities which you can encash. Build emotional intelligence. As I said you, learn to balance your emotions, control your emotions, manage your emotions. So, what do you have to do as a manager to uplift your emotional skills? Practice self-awareness by reflecting on your emotions, understand your triggers and temperaments, work on that, work on your anger management issues if you have, work on your reactive measures if you have, develop an empathy skill, listening to others, considering their perspective, respecting others, be compassionate. Develop the time management skill, prioritize your work, have priorities of work in life which can impact on the organizational goals. So, for that you have certain time management techniques. Now, what are these time management techniques? Have to-do list. The to-do list is nothing but prioritizing the work, setting deadlines, breaking the bigger task into smaller subtasks and then manage them. Have the financial literacy, take courses. There are many ample number of online courses on financial awareness, financial literacy programs, financial management programs, accounting principles, the gap and all that. So, review the and these skills will help you to review the financial statement, analyze the financial statement and You can also seek the guidance from any finance experts to improve your understanding on financial concepts. Then we have something to do with practice decision making. To be a good leader in the organization, you should be a good leader in your personal life. If you are capable of managing yourself, you are capable of managing others. Now, how to do all this? Start initiating certain involvement in your day-to-day life. Take your own decisions and see to that those decisions are reliable decisions. So, develop your analytical skills, evaluate the data, identify the patterns, consider the best solutions to the problem. Yeah. Encourage the collaborative spirit in the organization, because that can foster a culture of collaboration and open communication within your team by encouraging, participating, sharing information and giving ideas from diverse perspectives. Seek feedback and reflections, solicit feedback from your colleagues, from your peers, the team members. Reflect on your experiences, your success, challenges, identify. It is always wise to learn from the mistake of others rather than learning from the mistake of ourselves, isn't it? Yes. So, let us try to have a small recap of what we have covered today. We did start with discussing on 5 mindset of managers, isn't it? The 5 minds of manager, where we started discussing on the reflective mindset, action mindset. A manager should have a collaborative mindset, a worldly mindset and the analytical mindset, and with this we moved on in understanding some essential managerial skills like a leadership quality one should have, wherein a leader should be inspiring, he should be empowering others, he should be a conflict resolutor, and a leader should be a good communicator, an active listener, encourage good feedback, constructive feedback or critical feedback, and as a manager he should be capable of taking good decisions. For that he should have good analytical skill, adaptive skill and problem solving skill also. And then we also did try to understand about the interpersonal skill. In interpersonal skill we did understand about the importance of the empathy and relationship building and the role of influence, how it plays a prominent role in the organization. A manager should have a proper time management skill, prioritizing the work, then dividing the work, how to prioritize the bigger task to be divided, compartmentalized to a smaller task, organize it well and delegate the work properly, then strategically think, have a proper team management, build a proper team, encourage a team building spirit in the organization, resolve the problems or the conflicts. Then emotional intelligence, have a proper balance of your emotions. For that you can have a self-awareness of yourself, regulations for yourself. And then we also did try to understand about the financial literacy, how why financial literacy is very important for a manager to understand, because he should know in depth about the whole departments in the functioning the organization. That is the purpose behind. Then a manager should also focus upon the continuous learning through various online modes. He should have that urge to learn more, expand the horizon. So, and then we did try to understand some of the strategies that could enhance the managerial skills through technical skills, the human skills, and then we discussed on the conceptual skills which a manager should possess. Then we also did try to have certain insight on how to strengthen on these managerial skills, wherein we discussed on the self-assessment, to set a clear goals. A manager should have an apt to learn, and he should be an active listener as well, and a manager should also always have a guide or a mentor or an influencer who could have a positive, who could give a positive feedback to the manager and take on the leadership opportunities and build on the emotional intelligence and have a proper time management skills and gain the financial literacy as well. With all this, we also understood that a manager should practice a decision making, yes, and promote the team collaboration and seek feedback and reflection. So, with this we will just try to end this session over here. Thank you.